Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to the Ask Me Anything, Building Successful Tech Teams in 2021, the second part of our Disrupt and Diversify series, a three-part series aiming to help you shape your growth strategies and stay ahead of the curve in 2021. My name is Emma Jordan. I'm a marketing lead at Staffing and Recruiting for Motion Recruitment, the founder and creator of Tech in Motion Events, our international tech event series. For those of you who might be new to our community here, Tech in Motion is a community-driven event series with the goal of bringing together our tech community, now more tech communities than ever before, all at once, to share ideas together and inspire one another to innovate and continue moving forward. Today, we're so excited to have the chance to hear from two powerhouse tech leaders, Dr. Anita Jindal, Senior Director of VMware, and Jessica Sweeney, Vice President of Product at FINEOS. Anita has been in the tech industry for 25 plus years and has worked at companies such as NetApp, Oracle, Sun Microsystems, and IBM. She also holds a PhD in computer science and has multiple software patents and publications. She has led numerous teams across these organizations and has recently been awarded IDG 2020 Ones to Watch, which honors rising technology leaders. She is well known for investing in her community and is passionate about the importance of diversity and inclusion. She serves as a board member for STEM Mentors Silicon Valley, a nonprofit that promotes STEM for underrepresented children in the Bay Area. Jessica has also been in tech for many, many years, with her most notable impact being her current role at FINEOS, previously Limelight Health. Since joining FINEOS, Jessica initiated and led a holistic company transformation to position the company at the forefront of the industry. Her team recognizes her as someone who is exceptional at creating an environment of psychological safety in which staff can freely discuss their errors, seek advice, and collaborate to create even better outcomes. This cultural norm drives risk-taking and creative thinking crucial to innovation at FINEOS. In addition to her role at FINEOS, Jessica is the founder of Product Camp San Diego and an active member of Women in Product San Diego chapter to build the next generation of product innovators. Both of these wonderful leaders have been recognized in the Timmy Awards as Best Tech Managers in the Bay Area. Anita took home the trophy in 2019 and actually helped us judge the category this past year, where Jessica took home the trophy in 2020. We are so honored to have the opportunity to learn from such experienced and proven leaders today. This is a one-of-a-kind opportunity to get to pick their brains and get valuable insight into how to build your own management strategies for the new year. Please submit your questions in the GoToWebinar chat box. It'll be on your panel. You can submit your questions live throughout the event to get them answered by Anita and Jessica. Also, to help shape today's conversation, we're going to do a very quick poll just to see what topics you're most interested in hearing about from our speakers. You can see it on the screen now, and that will just help us shape and guide this conversation to what you all are just the most interested in hearing about. So, Jessica, I'll let you kick us off and tell the audience a bit more about you and your background, and then we can go ahead and get started.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be here alongside Anita. I'm really looking forward to hearing what the audience's questions are. I'll share with you all that my experience is primarily in enterprise software, especially focusing on mid-sized companies in their growth phase, right when they get to the point that they don't all fit in a conference room together, and they've got to figure out new ways of working to get to the next level of scaling up. As Emma mentioned, we've just gone through at Limelight Health, which was recently acquired by FINEOS, an agile transformation, and that was turning the whole company into a market-driven and product-led organization. And the good news is we made lots of mistakes and we learned lots of lessons, and so I'm looking forward to sharing them with everyone here. Anita, how about you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Anita Jindal. I'm a senior director at VMware, where I'm leading the organization, which is global and builds the Skyline product. A Skyline product provides proactive intelligence for our customers to keep them out of harm's way. I have passion for technology, and I always look for how we can bring in innovation into our products while aligning to the company goals. And my global teams have built products which have been first within the country, within the companies, aligned to the goals. And I always like to learn and work alongside my teams to bring innovation into customer products. In addition, I'm a distinguished Toastmaster. I like to continually look at honing my public speaking skills, and I like to contribute to women in technology initiatives through mentorship, through presentations, panels, and that's about me. And we see the first question which has come in. We will start with that, and then it's about what have been your biggest wins and lessons learned in creating or elevating your team's remote work culture this past year, and what's on your mind for 2021. So when we started in 2020, pre-COVID, I was managing remote global teams where we had a combination of remote teams and we had in-person teams as well. There was a lot of interaction where one could have whiteboard discussions. We could walk into offices and or schedule meetings to have impromptu conversations, in-person presentations. We could go for lunches, celebrate events in person. And when COVID came along, everybody had to go remote. It was a change, and the way we adapted to change was with the goal setting and making sure that everybody in the team is connected and knows what we need to be doing, what we need to be executing and delivering for within a certain time frame. They knew about their responsibilities, but at the same time, we were very connected with the team. With the communication was ongoing with respect to the empathy and the compassion, because it was a big change for people. We had our executive leaders at VMware who were on our calls almost very frequently, almost twice a week or on a monthly basis, making sure that employees are adjusting well to this new norm, and making sure they have facilities where whatever they need, it's available to them. And a few months into this particular remote culture, we were all were delivering and not missing a beat on our deliverables. So at the same time, we were hiring, and we were able to do virtual hiring and get people productive on day one. We learned to use technology very well, and at the same time have fun. For example, at our BU level, in order to get people moving and talking to each other, we had a summer Olympics where people would go out and compete to basically get a little bit fun as part of their workday and be healthy. And with 2021, this is going to be the new norm, and the work culture would change. The future of work, we will see that as employees get back to work, companies start bringing employees back to work. They will have preferences. There would be a change in how people work and from where they can work. My top of mind would be the well-being of the employees, at the same time how we keep them productive. Jessica, do you want to add to this?
Happily. Yeah, we had an interesting contrast, I think, Anita, compared to VMware. My organization, our whole company, was, even prior to the pandemic, a fully remote organization. So we came into March of 2020 with a very different starting point for all of our norms and tools that we were using. So it still was a transition, but a slightly different one, because we weren't just getting used to working remotely. We were able to see how the pandemic itself changed the way we had to think about and deal with remote work. So for the question you posed, the biggest win, I think it had to be the way in which our company culture normalized bringing our whole selves to work. Kids were at home, getting homeschooled. spouses were in the same room having different meetings with their company. There's all background noise, distractions. Life is happening in the house while we're trying to work. And we spent some time really deliberately addressing that as a team, as an organization. And I knew that we'd had some success the first time that someone's kid wandered in, sat on one of our staff members' laps, joined the meeting, and the staff member didn't feel like they had to say sorry. We see this a lot. Cats jump up on the keyboard, spouses come in to ask a question, and we get major apologizing in the meeting. And part of what we did was say, you don't have to apologize for that. Life is happening, it's going on. You get to bring your whole self to work, and that means whatever is going on for you is going on for you. And as a team, we all learned to just roll with it. And that level of flexibility, that level of space for people to accommodate whatever was going on for them in the moment, ratcheted down a little bit of the pressure that I think everyone was feeling with all of the changes that 2020 brought us. When I think about what's on my mind for 2021, it is about how we look ahead to what might be the end of the pandemic restrictions, the quarantines, the return to work. So although we were headquartered in San Francisco and had a fully remote team, we do have a couple of offices that people can go to. Not everybody likes working from home. Not everybody has a home they can comfortably work from. So thinking about how to manage that transition back smoothly and provide those resources to the team members who need them, how to get them back into a comfortable working environment safely and as quickly as possible is definitely top of mind for 2021. We've got our next question coming in, and I really like this one. It's, what steps do you take or initiatives do you have in place to foster a culture of open communication and transparency, especially during remote working? I love this because we talk about transparency. It's a management buzzword. We have to be transparent. And I think it takes a level of effort that not everybody is prepared for. Transparency by default even isn't something that just happens. Transparency is something that we have to work at and think about and be very deliberate about. The number one thing that I think of with transparency for remote work is the tendency that we have to want to wait until something is ready. We want to wait until something is done and make an announcement then. And when we are all in an office together, we have this wonderful ability to just walk around and get the vibe of what's happening. And there's management by walking around, but there's also team member learning by walking around, which is that you just hear conversations that are happening. You see who's in the conference room talking to each other. You go to lunch with people and you just hear about what they're working on. So there's this energy that lets everybody in on what's going on when we're all co-located there. That doesn't happen automatically when we are remote. So you as a leader have to replicate that level of transparency purposefully and deliberately. And specifically what that means is telling everyone what conversations are happening. So don't wait until the team that's working on the new policy or the new product or the new feature or the new initiative comes back with the result of that. Tell everybody when that project is being thought about. Tell them when that team is being formed. Tell them when that team has its kickoff. Give them those little updates along the way that clue them in that something is going on long before they're finished and deliver their report back, which is typically the time at which we think about communicating the results.
Yeah.
Anita, for you, how have you addressed it?
Yeah, Jessica, you have made very good points. Transparency comes with developing a level of trust, which comes about through building relationship with your employees and creating a safe environment. So a lot of times, especially in engineering, there will be good news, there will be bad news. So how do we make sure that we make it safe for people to be able to come and talk to you openly about if there are things or the steps which need to be taken to course correct, and make sure that is communicated in a timely manner, and the stakeholders are updated. In order to do that, we have to create a safe environment where employees feel that they can come in and discuss the challenges, because if we know of the challenges ahead of time, we can all put our heads together and come together with certain proposals and how to get ahead of challenges. So trust is a big piece, and building relationship is a big piece as a leader. And if we promise something to our teams, we want to make sure we follow through on that, so that they can see that as a leader, whatever we are talking, at least we are following through on that. And that also promotes a culture of transparency, open communication, and then making sure we talk about relationship building and the importance of that, so that there is a close communication between not only between the teams, but also between the stakeholders and all the teams that we work with. Okay. So the next question is, do you tend to hire more of a contingent workforce since the remote work environment becomes a new norm, or is it full-time employment still a priority? I'll start with this, Jessica, and then you can add your perspective to it.
Great.
So I have worked in different models. In some cases, we did use staff augmentation. It was for a specific skill set in some of the companies that I worked at. And then if there were certain projects which were to be delivered within a specific time frame. And the preference is usually towards hiring full-time employees. The reason is, one is that it brings in the continuity into delivering the projects. It brings in the rigor. It builds the skill set, and the investment in the product delivery cycle itself from the full-time employees is different. So right now, at VMware, the current role that I am at, we have full-time employees because we want to make sure that the products we are building are good quality. We have a continuity if there are customer issues, we can resolve them very, very quickly with efficiency. And as new innovations are coming in, we can bring in those innovations for delivering good quality products aligned to company goals. So that's how I'm doing it, but it depends on the business. So the business might be short-term versus long-term, and what the company wants to do. Jessica, over to you.
Totally agree with everything you said. Our product development teams are organized into Agile Scrum, and one of the core principles or objectives we've had is to keep those teams stable. So to have a predictable velocity for delivery, we've got to have stability in the team, and that has led us, Anita, just as you've said, to focus on full-time permanent employees. What we have seen over 2020 is more flexibility in the working schedule, more flexibility for people who need it. So as an example, we had one employee who at his own option shifted down to a part-time schedule. Given everything that was going on in 2020, it was the right choice for him, and we were able to accommodate that. So I'd say flexibility is key. That doesn't always mean a contingent workforce, though. The next question we've got is, how do you create team synchronicity when everyone is spread out across time zones and geographic locations? Absolutely, a very interesting question. We get so much benefit from being remote, of being able to hire talent anywhere they might be. We don't need them all in one place. We don't need them living in expensive cities, but it does create challenges. Our calendars are nuts. It's so hard to schedule with people in different time zones. So it is a very real challenge. And One of the things that we've focused on is having a small number of standing meetings for our teams. Of course, our Scrum teams have their daily stand-up, and we allow them to self-organize that. So one of the other principles that we're very committed to is self-organizing teams. We try to give them resources, guidance as to their success criteria, but the how of doing is left to that team. So we don't need to find as many global time slots that work. We allow each Scrum team, which is a much smaller number of people, to figure out when is the right time to meet. We also put some thought into geography when we formed those Scrum teams. So we've got team members in Japan, team members in India, team members all throughout North and South America. So we did pay some attention to that to make sure that we weren't creating the worst possible circumstances for those Scrum teams. And we try to be thoughtful and considerate. So we speak openly about how often we are asking our East Coast US team members to work late in order to accommodate the Pacific time team members. And I do get the sense that just by acknowledging that we're not being thoughtless about it, people are pretty willing to be flexible, and that creates a little more ease in the scheduling challenges that we have. Anita, I think you've got a much more global, much larger team than I'm working with. So have you just got that same problem but scaled up?
Yeah, actually, I would add to all the points. I agree with all the points that you brought up so far. So the points that I would like to add to that is the one other way of bringing synchronity into the global teams is one is to having the specific set of goals and the outlook of what we want to be doing by when. The rigor in planning for the projects is important. The team needs to know what they are responsible for delivering. The teams could be spread across geographies. So, and that's where technology comes into play. Yes, there are stand-up meetings and the regular checkpoints. Some of the ways we can also avoid having meeting overload is by use of technology. For example, we have Slack channels where people are providing updates, and there's a lot of chatter on it. Depending on what the issues are, people jump on it and they are able to resolve the issues, send the status back. There are expectations about making sure that the status is updated in the JIRAs before they come for a Scrum call, so that we don't end up spending time on finding the status. If there are engineering meetings, people have one-on-one engineering meetings. So it goes back to how do we bring in the autonomy and provide resources to the team with the actual the plans and outlook into what needs to be delivered by when, and then and tracking that on an ongoing basis. And technology plays a big role in it, in addition to the meetings.
Yeah, I'd love to talk more about the way that we use technology to do that, Anita. It's such an important part of establishing the culture of your remote teams. So we use Jira as well. We use Slack also. And putting things in writing has been one of the major behavioral focus areas that we've had through 2020. We've gotten to the point where we said, if it's not attached to the Jira ticket, it didn't happen, full stop. And I, as a leader, and this is for the folks on the line who are in a team lead or a management position, you're the person who has to set the accountability tone by being there to say, where is it? Where is it written down? The questions that you ask are the most effective way I've found in creating the accountability for doing things in writing, which is absolutely crucial to helping the remote team work asynchronously. So I've been in meetings where I've had to step in and say, hey, we're talking about that Jira ticket, but that thing you're talking about, I don't see documented in the comment or the place where it goes. Where is that? And I get whoops, 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 I'm going to get right on that. And I'm there to say, when are you going to have that done? Once I did that enough times, it wasn't all that often actually, but once I did it enough, the team started picking up on that tone and it became self-reinforcing. So I started it, but I didn't have to be the one who continued it and was there in every meeting, always checking up. It just became part of the culture of writing things down. I'm so glad you mentioned the tools there, Anita. We've struggled a little bit with Slack and having it feel like Slack needed to be instant response. And that created a problem for our team members in time zones where they were getting Slack messages early in their morning or late in the day from team members who were still in the middle of their working day. And we still struggle with that, even when we say, you don't have to respond to Slack immediately, get to it during your working hours. People still feel like they need to. Have you run into that? I'd be curious how you've addressed it.
No, actually, we haven't run into that issue. So we have the coverage. We do make sure that if there are people, it's too late for them to respond to the issues. At least it's on top of their list for them to come back and respond to those. We don't expect them to be monitoring Slack while they're sleeping, because there's enough which can go on during the day. So so that's where I talked about that while we have all these interdependencies, there are areas where we can move ahead without the strict dependency. And we do have our SRE teams. We have 24/7 operations. If there are some infrastructure issues, that's where they can help in and resolve those pretty quickly. But if it is technical issues, they can always wait during product development. Yeah. And so the next question is, okay, how does one plan their entire team's continuing education to remain current with ever-changing technology and skills requirements? I can start, Jessica, and then you can fill in on this. On our in my organizations, we use a couple of techniques. One is, as part of the product development itself, our team members look at what are the new emerging technology trends, what kind of technology stack we want to rely on and choose as part of building out the new product feature or the product itself. And so some of the new technologies, as they come in, they get to prototype with it, and they learn those technologies as they are building the product itself. And this is how a lot of my team members who were Java developers picked up the skill set on big data and the cloud technologies. And the second way, and once they pick up these technologies, and then there might be some members who require some extra resources. For example, then we want to make sure that they have resources and they can attend training on the webinars, seminars. There are a lot of free resources today to pick up new technologies, especially in the cloud space and the big data space. One can go and experiment with that and learn from it. And I myself also leverage a lot of these resources to keep myself current. So these are some of the ways that we use on our team that we to keep ourselves up to speed on what's going on in the industry. So Jessica, what are some of the tips you have for people or the practices?
Yeah, I've got two things that come in for that. One is really about just the safety to take risks. I think Emma had mentioned that in the intro. One of the things we're very focused on my team is psychological safety, and that is critical to being willing to try new things, being willing to admit if it's not working out and learn from that and iterate. So the first question any manager has to ask is it okay for my team to try and fail? Are they able to adopt new technologies or new tools or new skills and not be good at it when they first try? And if it's not okay for them to try and not be good at it, How can you create that on your team and give them opportunities to learn new things? Because the first step in being great at something is to be terrible at it. We all start there. And so it has to be okay for your team to do that too. The second thing that anybody needs other than the safety to try is the time. And this is hard to do when we've got overloaded work schedules, backlogs, development backlogs that would absolutely take a team twice this size, 3 years to get through. How do we then justify time for skill training, time for professional development? We tried working it into the regular working schedule, doing it as a slice of time. In the end, it was really much too hard for that to be preserved as sacred time. It was too easy to say that couple of hours a week just gets eaten by customer requirements or urgent meetings or whatever project someone's working on. What we've shifted to in 2021 is whole weeks set aside. So we took 1 week at the beginning of this year, just last week, and we took 1 week at the end of 2020. And again, according to our self-organizing principles, it was very much organized by the team members themselves to do a week between sprints that allowed them to focus on professional development. One was on learning new skills, the other was on collaborating within their teams. And we've built time into our 2021 sprint schedule for what we're calling innovation sprints. In true agile fashion, we'll figure out what that means when we get to it. We haven't defined that yet, but I've found it's more effective to set aside big blocks of time for our team rather than trying to weave it into the normal workday. Okay. We've got another question coming up. There's a couple of tied together, like how do you monitor your remote workers and how do you measure performance of the team members? And one of you has asked whether we see an increase or decrease in productivity by working remotely. So we'll kind of tie all those 3 different questions up into one topic that we can look at. One of the luxuries that I have in my role working with enterprise software development is that I am working entirely with a team of very high functioning professionals. I don't have anybody on my team who needs hour by hour monitoring, and none of us are punching a time clock. Although we did have to just introduce time tracking, but that's a whole separate topic. So by and large, the teams and individuals on those teams are very self-managing. So when it comes to monitoring remote workers, what do we really mean by that? For me, it's about monitoring the outcomes that they're producing. The job isn't to work 8 hours a day. The job is to create a high quality software product that solves our customers' problems. And I want to measure my team by their ability to meet that criteria. So some of the tools that we use to focus on those outcomes rather than the activities is to set really clear success criteria. And I do that collaboratively with my staff, and then to document those. So one of the resources I recommend to managers of any experience at all is the 1 Minute Manager. It's a very short book. It's by Ken Blanchard and Spencer Johnson. And it talks about goal setting. And so we've adopted within my team 1 minute goals, which allows us to, you should be able to read them in 1 minute. It does take longer than 1 minute to collaboratively agree what they are and write them down. It allows us to say, this is the outcome I expect you to produce. This is the time in which I expect it. Let's make sure that everybody's clear on that. And as a nod to transparency, most of these goals are visible to other members of the team. So that's been the tool that I've used. I've seen an increase in productivity for some people where working from home is the best thing that ever happened to them. I've seen a decrease in productivity for other people who've really struggled with having a work pattern and habits and environment that worked for them. So it's been all over the board. It's very, very individualized. But ultimately, I'm thinking about, are they able to produce the outcomes that I'm looking for?
Yeah,
Anita?
That's well said. Because in software engineering, what we want to make sure is that we get the outcome we need. For my teams as well, we did not have to closely monitor anybody. So the way we measure productivity and how we are making progress is one is we have specific goals, we have specific releases, we have monthly releases, we have quarterly releases, we have weekly releases. So there are certain specific goals that we have and the specific deliverables that we have. We have milestones as part of our plans. We have individuals with specific roles and responsibilities, and my teams are pretty accountable that once they have the accountability, they know that there are certain features, there are certain areas that they're responsible for delivering. They go above and beyond for delivering them. And the way we measure the progress is like we talked about as part of stand-ups. There are people with specific JIRAs. They will come. They will have the updates there. We will be able to track with our milestones whether we have hit a particular milestone or not. And so that's our measure of progress as well on how we are measuring and moving ahead in our project development, and at the same time, how are we able to measure the specific tasks which will help us get to that particular milestone based on the JIRA updates and the tasks that people need to be doing. But whole and whole, it goes back to the team, especially if the way I do it is I give autonomy to my remote teams. We have managers in the global teams. They are given autonomy to make decision making. They should not have to come to me or anyone else to take the decisions which impact the certain areas which need to be covered during their daytime. And they need to have the psychological safety, like Jessica was telling about, that any of these instances need to be used as a learning experience so that if they are taking certain decisions, then they know that I have their back, and that also fosters not only the personal development of the individual, but also builds the culture of trust between the team members. Yeah.
Right, Anita, I definitely want to come work for you, because that's really what it comes down to, is that culture of trust.
Yeah.
We think about the same thing, and what everybody probably is going to be hearing is like how all of these things tie together. So we can't talk about trust without referring back to the conversation we had about transparency, and we can't think about transparency without thinking about how people feel safe. And so you'll find that it all are pieces that you have to be supporting and driving as a leader together at the same time. So I'm glad to see it all kind of comes together.
Yeah. Jessica, do you want to start with this? There's a question on when allowing teams to try to fail, what are some of the frameworks or for metrics to determine whether they did or not, or is it just self-evaluation? I think we have covered it in a lot of content, but if you want to add anything else to it.
Yeah, I'll just add, it's kind of hard sometimes to come up with a framework for everything. We don't want to be too top heavy on processes and frameworks. So to some degree, it's even just as simple as how you as a leader and how your team talks about failure. So it's in the phrasing. It's, did you fail or did you learn something? So one of the ways that you can think about it is, can we measure our success in what we've learned? And choosing the right opportunity to do that is also important. I'm not looking to create learning opportunities on the most high risk, time critical, under-resourced customer deliverable. Pick your opportunities to allow those learning opportunities and make sure that they truly are safe for the team members who are doing it. And then I'm looking for the team to be frank in their assessment and clear on what they would do next. So I want to be sure that whatever the learning outcome is produces an action that the team can take the next time they face that situation. So we tried this meeting schedule. It was a total disaster. We learned, that the team isn't able to have 15-minute meetings. They need 30 minutes for reasons I'm making off the top of my head, right? And so what we are going to do next time is think more clearly about how long things on the agenda will take and allocate enough time. And that's kind of a basic structure that you can use. But that level of candor in admitting that something isn't working enables us to then have a conversation about what we do next. And that's really where the learning comes.
Yeah. The area that I would like to add to this is in software engineering, when we are doing prototyping, there could be a prototype which could linger on for months. So when we talk about fail fast, let's say we want to try out some technology as part of building a prototype or evaluating a technology or as part of building a product. So in those situations, it would be set up specific time goals or the time. Hey, we tried this technology. Let's take around 2 weeks for a prototype, and let's see if this technology would work for the design that we are looking for, or whether this design would work. And if that prototype is not successful within 2 weeks, that's the time clock. Then move on to trying. That will give you certain learning. What are some of the reasons why the technology did not work, and do we need to do some, or why the design did not work, or do we need to do something different? So I would say if for certain initiatives where we are trying new things, make it time bound so that it doesn't linger on for months and months and months, right? So that's how we want to. That's one of the things which is very important when we try new things and we take risks. And from risks, it is all about learning. So what is it that we learned from this particular prototype or technology or from design? Is there something we need to do better next time around, and how do we incorporate that going forward? Okay.
I love that you brought up prototyping, Anita, because it leads right into the next question, which is perfect. So about, are hackathons effective for team building and what outcomes should be expected? So from prototypes right into hackathons, what do you do?
Okay, so hackathons, it is effective, not only it's effective for team building, and it's also effective for the cross-organizational building. Like, for example, when we talk about collaborations, we talk about working across teams. Hackathons are one opportunity that enables team members to get out of their cocoon or their or whatever they are focused on to work with the team members from maybe different organizations to learn about new products and to try out different ideas. And in some cases, we have bug bashes, right? The bug bash is mostly for where you open up a certain platform or a product to the internal engineers, creative engineers, to go and work on to improve the quality of the product. So that's one way I would say the outcomes which are expected are, it's the personal growth and the professional growth of the individuals. They get to learn about a new product. They get to, if it is their own product and they are finding people are finding bugs, they will learn that what are some of the things they need to do differently in future for improving the product quality. And it helps them work and know other engineers at a technical level, at a professional level, and at a personal level. So relationship building also comes as part of it. Yeah, Jessica, go ahead.
I love it. One of the other things I'll observe about hackathons is that they provide an opportunity for members of the team who might not be out in front, not the extroverts, but the introverts, people who are less likely to speak up or to be the voice of their team, to have an opportunity to show their stuff in a different form. So our last hackathon back in December, there were members of the team who just sit quietly in the corner and do their work and produce good stuff. And the hackathon was their moment to shine, where they had produced something amazing and got recognition and kudos from their peers, and an opportunity for management to see that although they were the quiet ones, they were really, really important members of the team. Another benefit of hackathons. We're going to shift topics a little bit. We've got some other focus areas, and one of them is about diversity and inclusion. So our next question is, what are you doing to build more equitable, diverse, and inclusive talent pipelines? And this question, the person had asked particularly investing in hiring people without 4-year degrees. I love that you've asked this, because this is an area where I feel like I have been banging this drum with the HR department at every company I've worked at for the past decade. And that is, most jobs in an organization, with very specific technical exceptions, most jobs do not require a 4-year degree. And yet we just automatically like tack it on to the bottom of a job description, like it's part of the template. So for me, building these more inclusive talent pipelines is really about being thoughtful about writing better job descriptions. And the first time that I focused on this earlier in my career, I had an HR business partner who couldn't understand why I was spending weeks, really weeks, thinking about what the job description should be, because I was thinking very clearly, what is it that I want this person to achieve in the role? And what are the behaviors and experience a person needs to have a best chance of being successful? And I really had to work out for myself much more clearly what I wanted. And only then, after doing that hard work, and it doesn't sound like it should be hard work, but it really is, only then could I think about what the behaviors and experience were that I was looking for. And then I make that list of requirements as short as possible. There is some good research that shows that on average, men will tend to apply for jobs in which they meet some percentage of the required experience and skills. Women tend to only apply for jobs in which they meet all of them on the list. So right there, the length of the job description and the requirements you're looking for will produce a gender skewed list of candidates. There are tools that you can use to screen for unintentional bias. Textio is one that I've used. Gender Decoder is another one. You can just do a search for those to find them. They're pretty easy. And finally, the last thing I'll mention when it comes to diversity is that nobody is going to guess if you've got a friendly environment that is committed to diversity and inclusion. Nobody's going to assume that you have a friendly environment for marginalized and underrepresented people. You have to take the responsibility for demonstrating that in the things that you say and the things that you do to show candidates from marginalized and underrepresented communities that this will be a team where they can thrive. And you've got to figure out how to do that. And the most important thing is, of course, it has to be real. You have to be sure that you have created a team in which underrepresented people will thrive. So do that first, then make sure it's obvious to candidates, and then make sure that you've got a balanced pipeline of candidates coming in. Yeah. Anita, other thoughts?
So I'll, okay, my thoughts on that would be, the other area that I want to add is a lot of it is driven as part of the company goals as well. And especially at VMware, we have our D&I, diversity and inclusion goals that we align to as well. And so what we have done is, as part of diversity hiring, we are making sure that we have the diverse pipeline while we are doing recruiting, and as part of the interview panel, also we bring in the diverse perspective. So it's not just diversity; it's also about inclusion, right? Because people have different differences of different perspectives. So how do we value those perspectives? So there are especially at VMware, we have the power of different spots, which allow the different the diverse groups to come together. And these are all employee driven, where people can come in, share their perspectives. They have opportunity for leadership, as well as for additional networking. They use this there are several webinars where the opportunities for professional growth are presented to them through webinars, seminars, and the different talks. So there are, so as a part of this diversity and inclusion, it's very important that we do value the different perspectives that people have. And as we are sitting in meetings, at least poll on people who are quiet and poll on their perspectives so that we make an informed decision. So the next question is, studies have shown that women have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, with 800,000 plus women leaving the workforce as of September. How can leadership better support women in tech, particularly caregivers, through today's challenges? So I will start, Jessica, and then you can add your perspective. So throughout my career, I started as a women engineer, and it's always a choice for women so we are always faced with certain decisions, certain challenges, and one of the things that I have done as I grew from a management rank to the leadership rank is usually there are certain transitions that women go through, whether it's through the maternity leave or it's due to some family situation that they basically decide they want to take a break, or they want to they leave the workforce. In my situation also, when there were women engineers, when they were working for me, and after whenever they were faced with these kind of decisions, and they would think of quitting, one of the things as a leader I used to do was have a discussion with them on what is challenging for them. Is it at the time that they need to get through that situation? So if there are resources which are available for women, we need to explore that. Hey, can we take some time off to get out of this situation? Maybe situation will change in a few months, and we can come back to it. And then even if we take a break for certain time frame, then how do we go about keeping the continuity on what we want to do, so that we can come back into the workforce and we still can pursue that. Especially taking the pandemic situation, what I would say is it's been a life-changing situation, and it has been hard with everybody at home, and especially for women, if you're saying that they have to leave because of certain situation. It is the flexibility that a leader can provide. That if a person needs to take care of certain situations, so how do you do talk about that with your managers, and do talk about that with your leaders? Because if you're not able, if you don't discuss the challenges that you're faced with, then how do you how can they help you with continuing in the role that you want to be? You can together come with a solution on how you can still continue your career, or they can help you think through the choices. Jessica?
I think you've said it really well, Anita. We're coming up on our final 5 minutes of our scheduled time together. So we've been asked to provide a sort of wrap-up summary, and that's meaningful resources that we can share with participants, and final words of wisdom and advice. So not sure what I've got that might be wise, but I'll tell you what worked for me. There are a few books that I'd like to recommend, especially to new managers, but useful at any phase of your career. I've already mentioned the 1 Minute Manager. There is an updated version, which I do recommend. So if you find the new 1 Minute Manager, that's the one to go for. The other thing that I found really useful is The One Thing, and that's a book by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, and it talks about the focusing question of how do I move from having 15 #1 priorities to finding the one thing I can do that will make everything else easier or unnecessary. And that's a great way to help people understand the impact of what they're doing, but also to minimize the overload that we feel. And the other one I recommend is The Goal. I'll put these all in the chat so you've got them written down. The Goal by Elihu Goldratt. It is a book about the theory of constraints. And although it's for manufacturing, I've found that the theory of constraints is one of those keys to understanding productivity in any circumstance. And the last one I'll recommend is The Jobs to Be Done theory, which is not just a single book, but a whole body of knowledge popularized by Clayton Christensen, which is about understanding what people are trying to achieve. And that is foundational to some of what I've talked about before about being very objective focused. What are we trying to do here? So very short reading list. The good news is all three of those are tiny books, and Clayton's article is like a Harvard Business Review article. So you've got like less than an hour of reading to do. How about you, Anita?
Yeah. So one of the questions here is, what has informed my management style? So I will take that and address that. For me, over the years, it has been a learning and a growth going from a manager to a leader. And my lot of things which have informed my management style is feedback from my managers, my peers, my team members. So over the years, they have given me advice, they have given me input, which has helped me grow. And besides that, as part of, I have been able to leverage a lot of leadership and the coaching training, which is provided by our companies, and that has also helped me grow. And there are a lot of resources. Yes, there are books, and there are also resources on like Harvard Business Review articles. There are LinkedIn articles. So as I see something which is interesting to me, I do take time to read that.
Final words, I'll say if you do one thing as a leader for the participants, cultivating and developing your ability to effectively ask for, hear, and act on feedback is the most effective thing that you can do for yourself in your career.
Yeah. And for me, it is about developing trust and making sure your team is able to grow. So it's the growth is not just the career growth, it's about the continuous growth, the professional development. So how do we find the opportunities so that they can grow in the areas that they're interested in? And finding the opportunities, helping them find those opportunities so that they can learn and grow professionally. And thank you for your time, for giving us this time. Back to Emma.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anita and Jessica. That was so incredible. You guys provided such good insight. I'm sure everyone has a lot of really great takeaways to take from this that they can now apply and look into those wonderful resources you mentioned. So just thank you so much for your time and for sharing with us. And thank you for everyone who tuned in today as well. This webinar was recorded, so we will be sure to share that with you after if you'd like to go back and review it and share it with anyone who may have missed it as well. We hope that you can join us for part 3 of this series upcoming on February 18th. This last and final section of this series will be about investing in meaningful diversity and inclusion efforts in 2021. We touched a little bit on that during this conversation, and we're excited to further that conversation and really dive into it. So hopefully we will see you all there. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.